Like and subscribe for endless entertainment. In a world where humans have turned monsters into workers without pay, we find Fleo being the only one to treat them with the respect they deserve. Our MC tries to pay the goblin, but he refuses because servants doesn't normally make money from their jobs. However, after Fleo insists that the gremlin takes it as a gift, they all begin celebrating for the little kindness that he has shown them. Our MC notices that his body is suddenly glowing as he is abducted to another world as its 198th hero summon attempt. Fleo is confused about what happened to him, so the kidnappers explain that their world is under threat from the Dark Lord, which forces them to spirit away random people to this land in hopes that they will solve all their problems. A mink comes over to him and reveals that when someone is taken from another world, they're reverted back to level 1 but are given a divine blessing in exchange. The status window shows that Fleo's stats are absolute trash and the gods didn't even bother to give him a special power, while another person has all his abilities maxed out to everyone's surprise and astonishment. They take him to meet with the king immediately, where he is proclaimed the guardian of this world, and after the celebrations Fleo meets with the king, where he is told that there is no way to go back home, but they will give him land in a faraway forest so he can live out the remainder of his life out of their sight. Our MC is then gently thrown inside a carriage to start his journey towards his new home. He asks the driver if he's a worker without pay, but the lizard tells him that he is not, since in this world no one is forced into servitude and everyone is treated equally. But when Fleo starts asking questions about the forest he's being sent to, the driver decides to lock him inside. They travel for 20 days together through this vast land until Fleo arrives at the place that he is to call his new home. The lizard man gives our MC an inventory bag with gifts from the king, while warning him that the Dark Lord's monsters have taken over the forest, so he shouldn't stay here if he hopes to survive long, before leaving to head back to the capital. Fleo looks inside the sack to find many items inside and draws a cheaply made body divider. Some slimes suddenly volunteer to be his first victims in this new world, which also proves how crappy the sword was made. Our MC levels up and gains access to his protagonist powers, which gives him infinite points in all of his stats along with unlimited knowledge of any magic he encounters. A voice begins speaking to him that warns of spells inside his bag that will lure all monsters to his location, and our MC finally realizes that the king was trying to give him a new home in the afterlife. The voice cleanses the sack, then the fool still attempts to wander inside the forest, when thankfully another alarm goes off to explain that the woodland is contaminated with demonic aura, which would instantly make anyone who enters a hashtag. Fleo decides to cleanse the forest and unleashes a spell to send everything inside the woodland into the shadow realm. Then our MC immediately gets jump scared by pop-up screens until he reaches level 367, so he decides to turn off the notifications before looking over to see that his mana has now been fully recovered. Fleo unlocks common sense to realize that he can't live in the forest because the demon lord's army is too close, and he shouldn't go to the towns since the king wants to isekai him again, but the voice comes in clutch to recommend him pulling a mystique to change his form. Fleo turns himself into a trap which has an entire bakery in the back, and after realizing that every sane human will want a piece of his cake, our MC wisely decides to disguise himself as a man instead. Fleo teleports all the way back to the royal capital, and after realizing that he can do almost anything, our overpowered protagonist tries to return to his own world but finds that he's unable to do so. Fleo makes his way to the guild house, where he meets with a waifu elf and officially registers as an adventurer for their organization. He goes over to choose his first job when he notices the little one asking if anyone is willing to take her to the forest so she can get back to her family, but everyone refuses because the Dark Lord has a base near that location and leaves the child on her own. Fleo decides that he will help the little one return to her parents and says he will teleport them there, leaving everyone who heard him in complete shock. A royal knight accuses him of lying about being able to use such powerful magic, and her party wonders if he's Drake in disguise or just another successful influencer, but Fleo says that he can prove that he's telling the truth, and they take him to an alleyway. Then our broken MC effortlessly transports all of them to the forest, where all the knights bow to him to apologize for their mistake. The little one begins freaking out because she doesn't sense any demonic aura inside the jungle, and the waifus start drawing all their weapons to fight against her. Balarasa explains that the guild has gotten reports of a suspicious girl luring guides to the forest who were never heard from again. Fenris drops the act of a little one worrying about her family to reveal her true form as one of the demons serving under the Dark Lord, who was tasked by her brother to carry back food for the army. She uses her Conqueror's Haki to bring all of the royal knights to their knees, then prepares to deep-throat them, but Fleo saves Balarasa from a swallowing session that she would not enjoy. Then our 100 IQ MC uses teleportation magic to return all the waifus to the royal capital while staying behind to face the monster alone. Fleo decides that he will use every spell that he has against Fenris. He puts up a wall to block the tail whip before giving the demon a well-earned blowjob. The wolf Flash steps behind him, but Fleo uses gravity magic so the doggy can have an intimate moment with the floor to bring this fight to an end. The voice recommends that our overpowered MC make the demon his worker without pay, but he refuses because people being servants against their will was a poison in his old world that he will never bring into this land where everyone is free. Fenris tries her best to escape from her gravity chamber and eventually gives up when she runs out of mana. She begs Fleo to end her suffering, but he chooses to release the demon who cancelled countless other adventures' subscription to life, since he finds the act of taking a life to also be a deed that he can't commit. Fenris transforms into her waifu form, and Fleo tells the demon that if she stops putting humans on t-shirts, then he will allow her to go free. But before she can answer, our MC finds that the furry has went into sleep mode because she exhausted herself during their fight. A few hours later, we find Fleo looking through all the magic spells he gained when Fenris finally awakens from her coma. The furry thanks our MC for healing her while she slept, before getting in the good girl position to tell Fleo that from this point onwards she will be his servant to do with as he pleases. He quickly refuses her kind offer, so Fenris hits him with the cute girl Riz, but not even the great horny can change the mind of our alpha. Seeing no other choice, the furry uses the forbidden self-harm Riz, and Fleo finally agrees to allow her to follow him, which brings great joy to our waifu. Fleo tells Fenris about everything that happened to him and reveals his true form, then says that he has nowhere to call home, and our waifu promises to live the rest of her days by his side no matter who his enemies may be. We go over to the royal capital and find that the first princess is arguing with her father about banishing Fleo into the woodlands to become demon food, though the king seems not to care. A messenger interrupts the fight to tell them that someone has used supreme holy magic on the forest to cleanse all the demons camped there, and both the royals are stunned by the implications. The hero sets out on a journey with an entire army to destroy the Dark Lord. In the night, he returns to the castle and complains that when the soldiers saw the demons, they all started to run away, so he was forced to use his powers to protect them rather than fighting. But after he leaves the room, it's revealed that even though the hero was the most powerful fighter among them, he stayed far away from the battle and used the soldiers as a distraction to flee when defeat seemed certain. The hero walks down the corridor while wondering why no matter how much he levels up, none of his stats seems to increase in the slightest, as a servant walks over to distract him from his problems, and he decides to spend the rest of the night playing swords and shoes with her. At the Dark Lord's castle, we find a legendary cat girl telling her master that the purification magic that wiped out his army was cast by one person. Then he tasks her to go into the human territory and return with the mage who could accomplish such a powerful spell on his own. The next day, our party travels through the market where the cabbage man mistakes them for being a married couple, and they decide that it would be a nice cover to explain why they're traveling together. However, Fenris decides to act as his wife forever. Over at the guild house, our waifu officially gets registered as an adventurer, when the well-endowed elf suddenly makes an urgent request asking all hunters available to face the horde of monsters that the hero failed to take down. Fleo decides to not choose this mission because the royal army failed to defeat them, but Fenris says that she will take them down all by herself to prove that Fleo is the strongest human in this world. our duo teleports to the location where they find a house that the guild lends to adventurers. They hear fighting in the distance and rush over to find the party of waifu knights struggling to hold off a group of Ursurings. The muscle mommy gets tossed to the floor, but before it can give her a hard-pounding, Fleo casts Thunderbolt to give them a shocking surprise, while Fenri scores an air takedown to bring this fight to an end. The party of baddies thanks our duo for their help, and Fleo introduces Fenris as his traveling companion, which puts her in a very good mood to be attacked by another enemy, as she puts the fear of God into the Ursuluna and its feigns immediately to escape a trip to the afterlife. Fenris realizes that it surrenders to her, and after getting hit with the cute bear wrist, she convinces Fleo that they should take it in to use as a pet. Our MC uses magic to seal its power, then transform the creature into an adorable bunny rabbit that they can carry around on their journey. They return to the adventurer's house, where all of the royal knights introduce themselves to our duo, and reveal that in the recent battle against the Dark Lord's army, many of the soldiers got an all-expense-paid ticket to the gates of heaven, and the hero refuses to fight until he finds warriors that can be trusted, so the king has announced that all knights should prove their worth by defeating a Ursuring. They admit that at this point they cannot win a fight against the monsters, but asks Fleo to train them to become stronger. Realizing that Fenris is getting territorial, Fleo tells them that she's his wife and they just want to live alone. Our waifu says that as the leader of their pack it is his job to train them, and after giving it some thought, Fleo tells the royal knights that he will try his best. Then Fenris points out that the party of baddies can take the rest of the rooms in the house, since she and her husband will only be using one. In the night, Fleo gets ready to go to bed, but Fenris wants to perform the baby-making spell. However, our MCC blocks himself by convincing her to wait until they know each other better. The next day we find our duo attempting to train the party of waifus so they can work together to take down a monster, but the women soon start running like track stars so it doesn't catch them. Everyone heads back to the house where Fenris decides to make dinner, and it's revealed that the earlier monster did not get spared by our party. Fleo tells her that the food is uncooked, however our waifu is confused because she's used to getting raw meat, but Balarasa comes in clutch to make them a proper meal, which forces everyone who tastes it to climax from a foodgasm that shakes them to their core. They go to the guild hall to turn in some loot boxes while leaving everybody who sees it in total shock. Fenris tells Fleo that she'll be going into the city to deal with some private matters as a guild representative approaches to invite our MC inside his office. The furry says that Fleo achievements are the best that they have ever seen, and his street cred has reached so far that even the king wants to offer him a spot in the Royal Knights to fight against the Dark Lord, though RMC refuses because he doesn't have any problems with demons, along with the little fact that the king tried to make him past tense. Meanwhile, Fenris attends a cooking class in an attempt to surpass all the other waifus, and she fails at first, but with time our furry quickly improves until she can now make a meal that will make lips quiver. At the castle we find the hero living our dream as he hears about the number of monsters that Fleo have been bringing into the guild, and the lucky bastard decides that he will make RMC his right-hand man. Fenris and Fleo meet back up at the guild house with our waifu looking like she's been playing the Elder Ring DLC. Then they return home to find some soldiers requesting that RMC join the fight against the Demon King, and he sends them away disappointed. But Fleo notices that the muscle mommy has been impregnating the field with her seeds, while Fenris decides that it's time for the archers to start hunting down innocent creatures. RMC gives the mage a ring to boost her mana capacity, and the furry kindly persuades her to put it on the correct finger before going over to help the damsel in distress before she can lure Fleo into her web. Meanwhile, the legendary cat girl stalks them from the shadows. They return home to eat a meal cooked by our waifu, and she proves that practice makes perfect as the furry serves food that would make Gordon Ramsay proud. Fenris goes outside to invite their guests to dinner, where our furry tells the curvaceous cat girl that she is now happily married to Fleo and have left her life in the Dark Lord's army behind. The demon tries to look up RMC's information, but he has already installed a VPN, so she asks what happened to the soldiers that was in the forest, and Fleo explains that he was the one who cast the purification magic. Then the skimpy cat girl begins freaking out because Fenris' brother was one of the Dark Lord's 4 great generals, and he went missing after making this forest his base. Our waifu says that she knew that Fleo ended her sibling's subscription to life, but since he was a warrior, grieving him would be an insult to his memory, and when Fenri saw our MC's aura along with the unnecessary kindness that he displayed, she could never find it in her heart to do anything but love him. The waifu knights prove they have 0 points in stealth, as the appropriately dressed catgirl takes the chance to challenge Fleo to a duel so she can send him and our waifu on a honeymoon in heaven. They go outside with the 2 challengers facing each other. The battle begins with the half-naked demon taking the high ground so she can cast 2 spells to eliminate Fleo and Fenris at the same time. However, our overpowered MC easily destroys her magic attacks before countering with his own spell to bondage the curvaceous catgirl to leave her at his mercy. But since this is PG-13, she surrenders to him and is immediately released. The next day, Fleo meets with the Royal Knights to apologize for hiding the identity of the demon that tried to turn them into a happy meal. Fenris says that she is no longer a part of the Dark Lord's army and just wants to live happily with her husband forever, but accepts that it is their duty to report her to the king. In a rare showing of intelligence, the waifu knights choose to side with the 2 people that could single-handedly wipe out their entire army, and decides to keep everything a secret because of the kindness that they have been shown. Everyone rushes outside to see that the fanservice kitty has returned with a horde of dragons and tells them to join the dark side, but Fleo is excited to see the flying dinosaurs since in his old world they were rare. The Charizard uses flamethrower, but our MC counters with Thunderbolt to commit a great genocide on the oversized lizards, which forces the underdressed catgirl to make a strategic retreat. The muscle mommy wishes that she could defeat a dragon as well, so Fleo tells her to throw her farm tool as hard as possible, and with some assistance from his magic, the hoe deep throats one of the unfortunate lizards, which levels up the athletic bad bee to the rank of a dragon slayer. All the other waifus begs our MC to carry them too, but sadly the dragons have gone too far for him to target them. Meanwhile, the Dark One has been watching everything from a distance and decides that it's time for him to meet Fleo personally. The next day we find Fleo putting up an alarm system so no more unwanted guests can surprise them at their home. Balarasa walks through the forest while being miserable that she couldn't kill Steel to get the title of Dragon Slayer and reclaim her family's position as one of the high nobles in the capital, when a man suddenly interrupts the Royal Knight's depression session to ask where he can meet with Fenris. Balarasa draws her people penetrator, then accuses the demon of serving the Dark Lord, but Gol says that he just wanted to visit his friend, before leaving our brave waifu with a message for Fenris to have a talk with him. Our duo meets up with the Royal Knight, where it's revealed that the demon she just met was the Dark One in disguise, which causes Balarasa to have a panic attack. A few hours later, Gol shows up at their house, so Fleo invites him inside, where our waifu knight meets with him once again. Then they have a meeting in the kitchen with Balarasa having spasms down below from the Dark Lord's aura. Gol explains that 500 years ago someone strong came to this land from another world, and after the humans rejected him he freed all the demons that the people oppressed, before being proclaimed as the first Dark Lord who started a great war to conquer everything in sight for his people. Fleo questions if he has the same goal as his predecessors, and Gol confesses that after 12 generations of fighting, the war means nothing to him, but he cannot let our MC join the humans as that would tip the balance of power in their favor. Fleo reveals that he doesn't plan on fighting for any side since he's not from this world and doesn't care about most of the people he has met. It's proven that real recognizes real as Gol decides that he won't give up on recruiting Fleo but will leave for now, while our waifu knight passed out from reaching her peak during the conversation. The next day Balarasa awakens from happy hour to go downstairs and find that the Riz Lord is waiting for her to join him for some delicious breakfast, but she proves that the worst she can say isn't no. Gol uses the Jehovah Witness technique to follow the Royal Knight everywhere so he can convince her that once she goes black she'll never want to go back. At the capital, the king gets a report that a Dark Lord soldier has been spotted talking with Fleo, so he believes that our MC has turned against them, but the princess tells her father to be patient and send a messenger to see what's really happening. The hero arrives in the throne room, then declares that he will take the soldiers to Fleo's home and force him to join them. We find our overpowered protagonist working on items that he can sell to make some bread, but Fenri points out that Fleo could have caught a bag by joining one of the armies, and our MC says that everyone around him are noobs, so it would be unfair for him to style on them. The waifu knights tell our duo that the hero has come to meet with Fleo. The idiot threatens the strongest being on the planet in order to convince him to join the royal knight, and of course our MC refuses. The hero calls them all traitors and resolves to arrest everyone in sight, so Fleo decides that he will just leave this kingdom rather than fight. All our waifus choose to follow him anywhere he goes. Then Fleo uses teleporting magic on a mass scale to take everything that he cares about far outside of the king's or Dark Lord's reach, where our party can start a whole new life and live however they please. At the Dark Lord's castle we find him getting ready to visit Fleo, but the best-dressed catgirl reveals that many of the demons have been wondering why he spends so much time among the enemy instead of attacking them, and Ghoul tells her that he is trying to convince our MC to join them before leaving his army behind. The Dark Lord arrives at Fleo's old home but realizes that the hero has caused him to run away, which also took away his chance to get some noble wap from Balarasa, so he does the very reasonable thing and orders all his generals to launch an invasion into the human kingdom, while the hero uses his godlike power to run away like a little bitch. The Demon Lord's army makes steady progress, slaughtering all who are brave enough to face them in battle, while the king holds up in his castle where he is told that they have to use their last resort or face total annihilation. The monarch calls all his mages to use large-scale purification magic at the cost of their lives, but the demon lord waits outside the capital with the legendary catgirl, where he gets a report from his spies about what is happening inside and decides to pull his army outside the country for now. The king, with support from his sorcerers, casts the spell to prevent any demon from entering their region for 3 months. However, this act left most of their mages in a state where they won't be useful for a long time, while leaving their monarch bedridden. The princess takes command of the kingdom, and for her first act she strips away all privileges the hero had as guardian, because when the world needed him most he vanished. They throw the useless bastard onto the streets with his pet gold digger, and the only thing he can do is make idle threats that he no longer has the authority to carry out. Hours later, we find that the former hero has broken into the castle's treasury in an attempt to steal an item that will give him the power to defeat the Dark One and reclaim his lost title. He suddenly hears a voice asking to be let free from her prison as a hidden doorway reveals itself that leads to a people penetrator stuck deep inside a hard surface. The totally not evil voice tells him to test his pull-out game on the metal vessel in exchange for making his dreams come true, and of course the special grade human draws the sword, which immediately releases one of the strongest Jinn back into this world. Aya tells the former hero that he can wish for 3 things in return for her freedom, and the blonde bastard sends her to make our overpowered MC past tense instead of getting paper or smoking the Dark One. In the throne room of the castle, all the nobles suddenly get fancy chokers around their necks, and the princess sends the guards to the treasury before explaining that long ago a king wished for the demise of the demon king, but in return the Jinn used the collar of sacrifice to make half the people of this land a head shorter, so all the mages who remained came together to seal her under the castle until now. The oracle tells them that the only way to survive this is to seek out the true hero of this world, who has already been summoned. Everyone immediately knows that it's Fleo, and the princess decides to go out to find him herself. We find our MC coming home from work to see Fenri's happily waiting for him to return. Then he has dinner with all our waifus, where the muscle mommy decides to become a farmer, while the archer says she will raise horses to help make money, leaving the other 2 freeloaders to correctly feel useless, but Fenris tells them that they can help with chores, which puts them in a much better mood. The next day the waifu knights prove that they're S-tier wingmen by offering to take care of the house while our duo goes on the first date. The young couple goes out into the town to explore all the sceneries that it has to offer until they come across some jewelry that Fenris seems to like, so Fleo wisely decides to buy it for her to show appreciation for everything she has done for him. In the night, we find the furry staring at the first gift that anyone has ever given her, while the rest of the waifus dies a little inside from jealousy. Hours later they go to bed and have a cuddling session where Fleo doesn't seem to realize that he rolled a d20 to get the best waifu in existence. The next day, our MC goes to the weapons shop to sell a shield he made from dragon scale, and the owner decides to become his primary buyer for all of his future products. The two waifus watches from the outside, where Fenris explains that Fleo was once a merchant in his old world and Balarasa admits that she admires him. So the furry had to persuade the royal knight against such foolish notions before pointing out that goal has been trying to hit for a while. Our party begins walking through the town as Fenris congratulates Fleo on making money moves, when the Jean suddenly appears behind of them. Sensing what is about to happen, our waifu takes one for the team in an attempt to protect the one she values most in this world. Fleo tries to use healing magic, but it fails because she's already too far gone, while Haya begins attacking our party with all the magic she has, but none of her spells can break through the barrier. The overpowered protagonist gains access to all the Jin spells and uses his newfound abilities to pull a redo of healer around Fenris to rewind all the damage she took. Fleo goes over to give the Jean a free facelift before he makes her cosplay as a cockroach. Haya tries to put up a no-no square, but she gets a taste of equality as Fleo gives his punching bag the Broly treatment that he follows up with a flawless Shoryuken. Fenris wakes up from her coma to see that Fleo's hands are rated E for everyone that forks around can find out, and reaches her peak from watching him distribute justice on the Jean. Our MC gets ready to end this fight while Haya begs him for mercy, however that word is no longer in his repertoire. Fenris interrupts them to stop Fleo from doing something that he will regret for the rest of his life, and after noticing that she is alright, our MC embraces his wife while leaving the Black Air Force energy behind. The victim awakens from sleep mode and immediately apologizes for everything she has done, but realizes that our MC has healed all her wounds. Fleo reveals that he took a look into her thought box to see the reason why she attacked them, then admits that they can't return her to the castle because someone could just release her once again. He tells Haya that she must swear to no longer harm humans in order to gain her freedom. Seeing that our MC has now truly forgiven her for all that she has done, Haya joins our harem of waifus while promising to follow Fleo to the ends of the earth so she can witness everything that he will accomplish. However, when she remembers the ass-beating our MC dished out, the Jean reaches the climax of happiness. Fenris realizes that Haya is a freak and shuts it down immediately, while Fleo decides to manipulate time to fix the town that they destroyed, but the Jean tells him to never use that type of magic again because using it incorrectly could lead to the end of the world. So he decides to just activate the repair spell to restore the things they demolished. Our party returns home, where Haya is introduced to the rest of the waifus who are terrified to be living in the same space as her, but after some assurances from Balarasa, the Jean is brought to their room. In the night, we find our duo getting ready to go to bed, where Fenris puts him in the missionary position, and questions if Fleo is going to leave them behind to return to his original world since he now has the power to do so. But our MC tells the furry that his old home was a cruel place for anyone who wasn't born human, so he doesn't want to go back there. In a rare showing of intelligence, Fleo asks Fenris to officially become his wife because he could never imagine living anywhere without her, and of course she accepts. They begin the first step of the baby-making technique, but right as things are about to get good, our couple realizes that Haya has been watching them from the cup corner since she must witness everything that Fleo does, which makes Fenris furious that she didn't get her back blown out, while the other waifus are relieved that they didn't have to listen to a moaning session throughout the night. Inside the castle, the guards try their best to get to the blonde bastard, while the gold digger is worried because they're going to be executed for treason. Another voice begins talking to the former hero, who takes the form of Dark Mist before possessing the well-endowed woman's body to use as her own. Damelina's class changes into a stripper mage and decides to thank her savior by transforming him into a creature powerful enough to destroy all the nobles that sealed her away. Then she rides him throughout the castle until they come upon a teleportation circle that the mage chooses to follow to see where it goes.
Like for a cat girl, subscribe for a waifu, and remember to stay swifty.